Back in the mid-2000s, I started to play as a dungeon master for my brother Dylan and longest and best friend Link. This was the K&K campaign I've spoken of before, where we had the 3.5 Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guides, but the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Monster Folio. Things were hectic, but fun as I bullshit my way as DM pretty much 100% of the time. We played late into the nights, fueled by pizza and soda and the ever-present desire for loot and gold. There's an element, though, to this game that I only briefly touched upon in my video about the Tarrasque and the Jabberwocky. Something I never really went into full detail about because, admittedly, when it comes to 3.5 Dungeons & Dragons and any idea of a plot, it derailed it harder than a rocket launcher. That was the cool thing. So, what is the cool thing? Well, it was inspired, for lack of better terms, by a mishmash of early Megatokyo comics and the Deck of Many Things. Megatokyo is a webcomic about a couple of Americans who had, through some sort of drunken shenanigans, found themselves in Japan. As the series went on and on, it's only become more and more ridiculous, pulling in many sorts of Japanese trope of anime or video game you can think of. Kaiju, magical girls, ninjas, zombies, you name it, it was there. As far as I recall, Megatokyo is still going on to this day, though the plot lost me back in like 2010. Not sure if it was out of caring about characters or because it just became more of a soap opera. Point is, Megatokyo was funny and inspired a bunch of jokes and items in our D&D games. Most notably, the cool thing, which is this object that one of the Americans, Largo, had purchased on a whim. It seemed to be this metal sphere about the size of a honeydew melon, and what it did was, well, as far as I recall, never said in the comic. Really, only a couple of strips ever had the cool thing in it, and Largo never seemed to figure out what it did except for one panel, maybe, where he threatened the other American, Piero. Anyways, I took this object and the concept of the Deck of Many Things, an artifact that's a deck of cards. When you draw from it, there's either a boon or a folly. From level ups, gold, castle, death, banishment, and just having everything hate you. It's been spoken of a million times before, and I don't think it'll stop being spoken of as long as DMs put it in their games. So, what did I have the cool thing do? At first, I had a small chart of 12 things that could happen when you use it. It was pretty much just a list of things like +1 to an ability score, spawn some healing potions, random spell happens on random targets, so on and so forth. The number 12 result, though, was kind of video game oriented, where something called the X virus infects the closest village, town, city that the user was not staying in. If anyone's ever played Metroid Fusion, you'll know the X virus was a thing that consumed and assimilated animal life. This was the first thing that my character, Nekosuru, had ever rolled, and it was just as we were leaving town on a way to fulfill a quest. Now that doesn't seem all that exciting, right? A single D12 list of effects? Nah. That was version 1. The next version, version 2.0, is more fleshed out with 100 different effects, more related to video games and anime up to like 2009 or such, and some more defined rules, like uses per day, per character, how a target is selected, random caster level for the spells being cast, permanent effects, temporary effects, generated items, so on and so on. The version came with the second iteration of the K&K party, where we had a monster manual, an actual 3.5 one, and prestige classes for the party. Frizzy Berserker for Inn, Kit was a Shadow Dancer, and Boots was a Dragon Disciple, for the record. Still had stuff like random fireballs, spawn random weapons, potions, so on, but now included things like summon a level 10 monk human wearing a yellow jumpsuit. His punches and kicks are followed by sound effects. Or summon 15th level wizard half fiend half human with a +5 dancing trident that attacks the user of the cool thing. And one of my personal favorites, generates 6 capturing spheres. And yes, those were references to Bruce Lee, Ganon, and Pokemon. It was not a very serious game. As much as the party loved the cool thing, they also ended up hitting the cool thing. Like, we only ever used the cool thing when we were about to make camp or about to head out on an adventure the next day. Nearly every time that we used it tried to start something in the Sunless Citadel adventure, for example, Oakhurst would come out of it burnt to the ground. One session we had started as we were heading down and into the ravine to face off against the giant rats on the first ledge. I think it was Boots who activated the cool thing and conjured a gaping gate to hell into the wall of the ravine. We immediately climbed right back up and tried to break the ravine to cover up the hole as best we could without really seeing if it did the job or not. We made a hole to the abyss and we were level like 2 or 3. Taking our wagon back to Oakhurst though, Nekusuru was all, maybe I'll get a cool sword, cause at the time he had pretty much the same mentality of fighter from Nuclear Power's 8-bit theater. And then he activated the cool thing. This time it summoned a frostworm that wanted to eat us. The horses get smacked to pick up the pace and Nekusuru and Boots are shooting it with everything they've got. Magic missiles, bows, crossbows, couple of scrolls of fireball, everything we had at them. The last blow was a critical hit from a scroll of searing ray. The wagon was still charging away through Oakhurst and the frostworm came to a slow skidding stop and then exploded in a massive blizzard that covered the entire town center, killing a good portion of the populace. Ain't stopping now, was pretty much Kit's reaction as we kept on riding off into the distance. I'm sure that if you watch my previous stories, you know about the more recent fight K&K had against the Jabberwock and how we drove him off by sheer luck of summoning a Vorpal sword with a cool thing. Well, before that, we were riding along on the beach heading towards the city in question that we had summoned the Jabberwock at. Random encounter, 2 sea drakes. Okay, we slew those 2 only to be attacked by another 2. Slew those 2 as well and then suddenly another 2. We jumped back on the wagon and started riding as fast as we could to get to the city to avoid the drakes, making ride checks to dodge lightning breaths this way and that. Someone had charged up the cool thing earlier that day, gaining a potion that gave flying and an imprecise flight speed as well. Seeing that the drakes were gaining, Kit's plan was to force it down the poor mule's throat as it was running for its life. There was an even 50-50 shot that the potion would also affect the wagon, and suddenly the wagon was flying like Santa's sleigh. We were still being pursued by the drakes, but the wagon was now gaining distance. We eventually crossed over the tall as heck wall of the cities we were heading to, and the drakes were greeted by oh so many ballista bolts. Another time was when the party was in a market, buying stuff, selling stuff, stealing stuff, all the same busy market stuff. One merchant had a large, impressive stock of weapons and armor in his shop. And, of course, Link and thusly his character Kit just wanted all those things and started to try to get the key from the high mage elf who had enchanted all this stuff. So, not only was he trying to seduce the high elf mage, but at the same time reach over the counter and into his robe for his keys. Kit had failed both those skill checks though, and the mage was furious, locked down the store with Kit inside. The only thing Kit could do was use the cool thing, and that summoned a massive fiendish T-Rex. It wasn't under Kit's control, mind you, it just attacked the mage and Kit randomly until Nekusuru and Boots were able to reach the shop. This T-Rex breached the shop, activating a massive fireball trap that was on the door, destroying the shop and the mage along with it. Kit having the evasion ability to not take the damage from it. So the fiendish T-Rex was menacing the place and Nekusuru attacked, getting swallowed in the process. In is a barbarian though and was able to cut his way through the beast's belly. That's when Boots took an opportunity to use a capturing sphere that had at one point been made from the cool thing. After a few tense moments, the sphere stopped shaking and Boots had caught a demonic T-Rex. Named it Betty. My brother was weird. I could probably go on and on about the random stuff that the cool thing did and what kind of chaos it had wrought, but most of the other situations were not as bad or as cool. Like summoning a +1 great axe out of nowhere while chilling in a house is dull compared to summoning a longsword that flies out of nowhere and lodges itself into the chest of a city guard. I'm not sure what people will take from this, save for using things that have so many random different effects can be a blast, for good or bad. Thank you all for watching and listening to more D&D stories. I know that this one came way later compared to the last one, but I've just not been able to record as frequently as I wished to. If you enjoy these kind of videos from me, like, comment, subscribe to my channel for more chaotically told tales from the role-playing tabletop. Don't forget to share the video too, as it'll get some new eyes and ears and help spread the word of the channel. If you want more D&D content out of my channel, I do have other D&D stories. Not to mention, I let's play a bunch of D&D related games like Daggerdale, Temple of Elemental Evil, and Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. You can click one of those annotations I have on the screen to go right to one of them. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Take care. Cheers.
I suppose it's not really killing people if they're already dead. Anyway, we made it.